I'm at my parents' house right now, and I literally can't stop shaking. My mom keeps asking if I want tea, and I'm just sitting here staring at my phone like it's going to explode. I, 28F, moved in with my boyfriend Mike, 34M, 6 months ago, and I just found out something that's making me question my entire reality. I don't even know where to start, but I need to get this out because I feel like I'm losing my mind. So Mike and I have been together for 2 years. He's honestly been the best boyfriend I've ever had. Attentive, sweet, supportive, the whole package. When we first started dating, he told me he was a widower. His wife Emma died in a car accident 4 years before we met. It was this tragic thing, and he'd get emotional talking about it, so I never pushed too hard for details. He had a few photos of her around his apartment. Well, now our apartment. And honestly, I thought it was sweet that he still honored her memory. He wasn't one of those guys who completely erased his past, you know. About 3 months ago, Mike's sister Hannah came to visit from Portland. This is where things start getting weird, but I didn't think much of it at the time. Hannah pulled me aside at dinner one night and said something like, "I'm so glad Jake found you." We were all really worried about him after Emma. Normal enough, right? But then she added, "It's good to see him actually happy for once. The last few years of their marriage were really rough." I kind of filed that away in my head. Like, okay, so his marriage wasn't perfect before she died? That's pretty normal. People have problems. But it nagged at me a little because Jake had always painted the relationship as this epic love story that was cut tragically short. Fast forward to 3 weeks ago. Jake left for a week-long work conference in Chicago. He's a software engineer and his company does these things quarterly. Usually not a big deal. The night before he left, we had sex and he fell asleep immediately after. Typical. I was scrolling on my phone when I saw his was lighting up on the nightstand. I wasn't trying to snoop. I swear I wasn't. But the notification preview showed part of a text from E. Martinez that said, "I know you said you need space, but the kids are asking about..." And that's all I could see before the screen went dark. Kids? What kids? Jake doesn't have kids. He's told me multiple times he wants kids with me someday, but doesn't have any. My heart started racing, but I told myself there was probably a reasonable explanation. Maybe it was a coworker's kids? I tried to go back to sleep, but I couldn't. The next morning, after Jake left for the airport, I did something I'm not proud of. I went through his laptop. I know his password, because he's given it to me before to order stuff on Amazon when my computer was dead. I told myself I'd just take a quick look and clear my mind. I found his messages app synced from his phone. And there it was, an entire text thread with Emma, "Do not call." I'm not kidding. That was literally the contact name. Emma, do not call. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely scroll. The messages went back months, since before I even met Jake. Recent ones too. From the past few weeks. Here's what I pieced together from reading. And I read everything, every single message. Emma is very much alive. They are separated but still legally married. They have 3 children together, ages 9, 7, and 5. Emma and the kids live in Sacramento, about 90 minutes from us. Jake has been sending her money regularly. He sees the kids occasionally but tells Emma he can't do regular custody because of work commitments. The kids think Daddy lives far away because of his job. I literally threw up. Like, actually threw up in the kitchen trash can. I couldn't process what I was reading. This man I'd been living with, sleeping next to, planning a future with, he had a whole entire family that he told me was dead. But wait, it gets so much worse. I kept reading. There were messages from around the time Jake and I first met where Emma was begging him to go to marriage counseling. He kept saying he needed space to figure things out. Then there was this gap of a few months. Then Emma messaged him saying she saw on Facebook that he was in a relationship with me, and was that why he'd been avoiding family therapy? He responded with some bullshit about how he needed to move on with his life, and she needed to respect his boundaries. While he was married to her with 3 kids. The most recent messages were from the week before. Emma sent him a photo of their youngest at a soccer game. Jake responded with cute, and nothing else. She asked if he could come to the kid's birthday party next month. He said he'd try to make it work, which apparently is code for probably not. I screamed. Like, actually screamed out loud in my empty apartment. Then I called my best friend Rachel, and she came over and we went through everything together. Rachel was the one who pointed out that Jake's Facebook still listed him as married to Emma. I'd never thought to check, because he told me he wasn't on social media much. Red flag I'd totally missed. But there it was. Married to Emma Martinez since 2014. Profile picture from 2202D is him and Emma with their kids at Disneyland. Rachel was livid. She wanted me to pack all his stuff and throw it out the window. But I was frozen. I literally couldn't move. This was too insane. This couldn't be real. Here's where I maybe made a mistake. I didn't confront him immediately. I know, but I needed to know more. I needed to understand what the hell was going on. So I messaged Hannah on Instagram. I'd followed her after her visit and we'd chatted a few times about random stuff. I sent her something like, "Hey, random question, but do you have Emma's contact info?" I wanted to reach out to her family about something. Hannah responded within an hour. "Emma? You mean Jake's wife? Why would you need to contact her?" Wife. Not late wife or Jake's ex or anything. Just wife. I played dumb. Said I must have gotten confused. But Hannah seemed suspicious and sent me a follow-up message. Is everything okay? Has Jake been acting weird? Instead, I did the most impulsive thing I've ever done in my entire life. I found Emma Martinez on Facebook. There were only 2 in Sacramento, and one was clearly her from Jake's old photos. And I messaged her. "Hi, Emma. My name is Nat. I'm dating Jake. I just found out you're not dead. Can we talk?" She responded in 10 minutes. "Oh my God. He told you I was dead? What the actual fuck? Yes, we need to talk. Can you call me?" We talked for 3 hours. 3 hours! Emma is an elementary school teacher. She's 33. They got married young. Had their first kid at 24. According to Emma, their marriage was okay until about 5 years ago when Jake started getting really distant. He'd work late constantly, would be on his phone all the time, stopped engaging with the kids. She thought he was cheating but could never prove it. About 2.5 years ago, Jake told Emma he wanted a separation. He moved out and got an apartment in our city, the same apartment I eventually moved into. I feel sick. He told Emma he needed to find himself, and that he'd been feeling trapped by family life. He promised he'd still be involved with the kids and would work on himself and maybe they could reconcile. Instead, he basically ghosted them. He'd see the kids once every few months. He sent money, which Emma said was barely enough to cover their expenses, but was never emotionally present. Emma kept hoping he'd come around. She didn't file for divorce because he kept saying he just needed time. Then Emma found out through mutual friends that Jake was dating someone. She was devastated but tried to accept it. She messaged him asking if they should finalize the divorce. He got angry and told her to stop harassing him. That's when she stopped pushing. I asked her about the car accident story. Emma laughed, like a sad, bitter laugh. She said, "I was in a minor fender bender about 6 years ago. I was totally fine. Is that what he told you? That I died in a car accident?" Jesus Christ. So he took a real event and twisted it into this tragic backstory. I felt so stupid. So incredibly stupid. Emma sent me photos of the kids. They're beautiful. The oldest looks just like Jake. Emma told me they ask about him all the time. They don't understand why Daddy doesn't come to their games or recitals anymore. She's been telling them he's busy with work, but she knows they're old enough to start realizing something's wrong. By the end of our conversation, Emma was crying. I was crying. We were both just crying on the phone to each other. She told me she didn't blame me. How could I have known? But she also said, "Please don't stay with him. He's not who you think he is. He's a coward and a liar, and those kids deserve better." I agreed. Obviously, but I didn't know what to do. Jake was coming back in 4 days. I couldn't stay in the apartment. Every time I looked at his stuff, I wanted to vomit. So I packed a bag and went to my parents' house. Told them I needed a few days because Jake and I had a fight. My mom could tell something was really wrong but didn't push. Jake noticed I was gone immediately. He called me like 30 times that first day, left voicemails asking where I was and if I was okay. I didn't answer. I texted him once saying, "I need space right now. Don't call me." He responded asking what happened and saying he loved me. I didn't respond. He came back early from his conference. Showed up at my parents' house yesterday. My dad answered the door and told him I didn't want to see him. Jake tried to argue, but my dad, who's 6'3" and played college football, basically told him to leave or he'd call the cops. Jake left, but not before shouting up at my window that we needed to talk and he could explain everything. Explain what exactly? That his wife and 3 kids just slipped his mind? Emma has been texting me updates. Apparently Jake called her in a panic yesterday asking if she'd talked to anyone about their situation. Emma told him she'd talked to me and that I knew everything. He tried to tell her it was none of her business, the audacity, and she told him to fuck off and hung up. She's filing for divorce next week. She said my calling her was the wake-up call she needed to stop waiting for him to change. Jake has been calling and texting me nonstop. He's left maybe 50 voicemails at this point. I finally listened to a few this morning and they're all the same bullshit, Baby, please just let me explain. You don't understand the full situation. My marriage was over long before I met you. I was going to tell you, but I didn't know how. I love you, not her. I'm not the bad guy here. You are exactly the bad guy here. His sister Hannah has been messaging me too. Apparently Jake called her freaking out and she put two and two together. She apologized profusely and said she had no idea Jake had told me Emma was dead. She thought I knew about the separation and the kids. She said their whole family has been giving Jake shit for years about how he abandoned Emma and the kids, but they didn't realize he was out here inventing a whole fake reality. Rachel wants me to blast him on social media. Post screenshots of everything. Let everyone know what kind of person he is. Part of me wants to do that, but part of me just wants to disappear and pretend this never happened. I finally agreed to meet Jake in person tomorrow. Neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. My brother is coming with me and sitting at a nearby table in case things get heated. I don't know what Jake is going to say. I don't know if there's anything he can say that would make this okay. Spoiler, there isn't. Emma asked me if I'd be willing to meet her and the kids. Someday. She said she'd like them to know that their dad's abandonment isn't their fault, and that there are still good people in the world. I said maybe? I don't know. Part of me feels like I should stay completely out of their lives. But another part of me feels like I owe Emma something. Solidarity between women who've been lied to by the same man? Is that weird? My mom thinks I should just block Jake and move on. Never talk to him again. Get my stuff out of the apartment when he's not there and ghost him the way he ghosted his family? That would be poetic, wouldn't it? But I'm so angry. I want answers. I want him to look me in the eye and explain how he thought this was okay. How he slept next to me every night knowing he had 3 kids who missed him. How he celebrated our anniversary while missing his daughter's birthday party. I keep thinking about all the times he'd get emotional about losing Emma. All those moments, I comforted him, told him it was okay to still grieve, that I understood. He'd tear up sometimes looking at her photos and I'd hold him. Oh my God. Those photos were probably from like 2 years ago. She wasn't even dead yet in his timeline. Was he sad about their separation? Was it all an act? I don't even know what was real anymore. And the kids. God, the kids. I keep thinking about them. They're 9, 7, and 5. The youngest has probably barely seen his dad his whole life. The oldest is definitely old enough to remember when Jake was around more. What has Emma been telling them? How do you explain to children that their father chose to start over with someone else and pretend they don't exist? I found myself going through our photos together last night. 2 years of memories. Meeting his coworkers. Did they know? Going to Hannah's wedding. Everyone definitely knew. That trip to Mexico for my birthday where he told me he'd never been happier. Was he texting Emma the whole time asking about the kids? Did he step away from our romantic dinners to send child support payments? There's this one photo from Christmas. We're at his mom's house. His mom? Oh God, his mom definitely knew. She knew and smiled to my face and welcomed me into the family like everything was normal. Jake and I are wearing matching ugly sweaters and laughing. I remember that day so clearly. His mom made her famous lasagna. We played board games. Everyone kept telling me how good I was for Jake, how they hadn't seen him this happy in years. Of course he was happy. He got to play pretend, got to be the fun, carefree boyfriend without any of the responsibilities of being a husband and father. Must be nice to just decide you don't want to do the hard parts anymore and restart with someone who doesn't know any better. Rachel said something yesterday that keeps playing in my head. He didn't just lie to you. He's lying to those kids every single day. He's lying to Emma. He's lying to himself. That's who he is, a liar. She's right. This isn't a mistake. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is who Jake is fundamentally. Someone who can abandon his children and create an elaborate fiction to avoid accountability. The worst part? I loved him. Like, actually loved him. I could see myself marrying him, having kids with him. We'd talked about it. He'd say things like, I can't wait to be a dad someday, and I'd get all emotional and excited. He's already a dad. He has 3 kids. And he's a terrible father. What was his plan here? Did he think he'd never get caught? Was he planning to just keep both lives going forever? What would have happened if I got pregnant? Would he have told me then? Or would he have just added a 4th secret child to his roster? I packed up more of my stuff from the apartment yesterday while he was at work. My dad and brother came with me. It felt so surreal, boxing up my things from this place I'd thought of as ours. My brother found a toy car under the couch, a little red Matchbox car. Jake must have had the kids over at some point before I moved in. Or maybe one of them left it during a visit I didn't know about. I threw it at the wall, watched it break into pieces. My dad just hugged me while I cried. I'm dreading this meeting tomorrow. I don't know what Jake is going to say. I've been imagining it all day. Scenario 1. He's remorseful, begs for forgiveness, admits he fucked up, says he'll work on being a better father in person. Still don't want him back. Explains how complicated his situation is, how he fell out of love with Emma, how he couldn't help falling for me, how he was going to tell me eventually. Makes me want to throw my coffee in his face. Scenario 3. He gets angry, accuses me of violating his privacy by going through his stuff, blames Emma for not giving him space, says I'm overreacting. Most infuriating but possibly most honest. Scenario 4. He tries to manipulate me, uses the "you're the love of my life" card, promises to divorce Emma immediately, says we can start fresh, maybe even hints that I could help him rebuild his relationship with his kids. Absolutely fucking not. What I really want is for him to take accountability, to admit that he's been a selfish coward, to acknowledge the pain he's caused, not just to me, but to Emma and those 3 kids who deserve so much better. But I don't think that's going to happen. People like Jake don't take accountability. They make excuses. Emma sent me another message this morning. She said, "I know this is horrible for you right now, but thank you. Thank you for finding out and telling me. I've wasted 2 years waiting for him to be the man I married. Now I can finally move forward." That made me cry again. How is it possible that I've known this woman for less than a week and I feel more connected to her than to the man I lived with for 6 months? My friends have been amazing. Rachel has been checking on me constantly. My college roommate drove 3 hours to hang out with me yesterday. Everyone keeps saying the same thing. You dodged a bullet. But it doesn't feel like dodging. It feels like getting hit by a truck. I keep replaying our relationship in my head, looking for signs I missed. Were there red flags? Of course there were. He was vague about his past. He didn't have many photos from his marriage around, because they were recent and he couldn't risk me recognizing backgrounds or dates. He was protective of his phone. He'd occasionally cancel plans last minute for work stuff, probably kid stuff. He never wanted to post us on social media. Because he was still listed as married, his family was always slightly awkward around me because they knew. But I explained all of it away. He was a widower processing grief. He was private. He was busy. His family was just quirky. I'm such an idiot. No, actually, I'm not an idiot. He's a liar. There's a difference. I've been thinking about what I want to say to him tomorrow. I have a whole speech planned in my head. You made me complicit in your abandonment of your children. You made me the other woman without my knowledge or consent. You stole 2 years of my life where I could have been with someone honest. You're not just a bad partner, you're a bad person. And I hope someday those kids forgive you, but I never will. Will I actually say it? Probably not. I'll probably just sit there and listen to him make excuses and then leave. But it feels good to imagine. My mom asked me this morning if I thought Jake actually loved me, or if I was just convenient. That question has been haunting me all day. Was I just an escape? A way for him to feel young and free again? Did he actually see a future with me, or was I just a fantasy he maintained to avoid his real life? I don't think I'll ever know the answer. And maybe it doesn't matter. Either way, he lied. Either way, he chose himself over everyone else. Me, Emma, and especially those kids. I'm terrified about tomorrow. Terrified I'll see him and still feel something. Terrified he'll say something that makes me doubt myself. Terrified I'll leave without getting closure. But I have to do this. I have to look him in the eye and tell him it's over. Not just our relationship. His whole fake life is over. Emma's divorcing him. His family knows what he did. I know the truth. He can't keep living in his carefully constructed fantasy anymore. Part of me wonders what happens next for Jake. Does he try to rebuild a relationship with his kids? Does he disappear even further into his own bullshit? Does he find another woman and tell her some new elaborate lie? My ex-wife and I had a bitter divorce. My girlfriend died in a tragic accident. I lost custody of my kids. Whatever story serves him best, I hope Emma gets everything in the divorce. I hope those kids get therapy and turn out okay despite having a father who chose to abandon them. I hope Jake ends up alone and realizes what he threw away. Not me, but his family. And me? I don't know. I'm 28. I thought I'd found my person. Now I'm starting over, and I don't even know where to begin. Back on dating apps? Eventually, I guess. How do I not become that person who Googles every potential date, who checks for secret families, who assumes everyone is lying? Rachel says I'll get through this, that someday I'll look back and be grateful I found out now instead of after we got married or had kids together. She's right. But right now, grateful is not what I feel. I feel betrayed and angry and sad and stupid and angry again. Yes, angry twice, because it deserves to be said twice. My brother keeps offering to handle Jake. He's mostly joking, but it's sweet. My dad has been quieter, which is how he processes things. But I caught him looking at old photos of me at my high school graduation, and I realized he's probably thinking about how proud he was that day, and how he wants to protect me from anything that hurts me, and how he can't protect me from this. This whole situation has made me think about my parents' marriage differently. They've been together 35 years. They've had their ups and downs. I remember them arguing sometimes when I was a kid. But they worked through it. They didn't just leave and start over with someone else. They committed, and they stayed committed. That seems so rare now. I wonder if Emma thought the same thing on her wedding day, that she and Jake would figure things out together, that marriage meant something. And then slowly, over years, watching him check out, realizing he'd rather run away than do the work. God, that must have been so painful. At least my pain has an endpoint. I can block Jake, move on, heal. Emma has to co-parent with him for at least 13 more years, until their youngest is 18. She's stuck dealing with his bullshit forever, because they have kids together. That's its own kind of hell. Okay, I need to try to sleep. Tomorrow is going to be brutal. I'm meeting Jake at 10 a.m. I'll update after if anyone cares. Wish me luck. Or don't. Either way, I'm done with Jake and his dead wife who isn't dead bullshit. Yoop date, because apparently my life is a TV show now and you all need to know what happened. I met Jake at the coffee shop this morning. My brother sat 3 tables away pretending to work on his laptop, but obviously watching us like a hawk. Jake looked like shit. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. Part of me felt bad for a split second. Then I remembered he has 3 kids and snapped out of it. He tried to hug me when I arrived. I stepped back and he just stood there awkwardly before we sat down. I didn't order anything. This wasn't a casual coffee date. I just wanted to hear what bullshit excuse he'd come up with. He started with, "I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." I just stared at him. Didn't say anything. Made him squirm. He continued, "I know you must hate me right now. I know I fucked up. But please let me explain." Explain what? That your dead wife isn't dead? That you have 3 children you abandoned? That you lied to me every single day for 2 years? Please, Jake, explain away. He flinched. Good. Emma and our marriage was over long before I met you. We were essentially roommates for the last year we lived together. I felt trapped. I felt like I was drowning. When I moved out, it was supposed to be temporary. But then I realized I was happier without her, without that life. And your kids? Were you happier without them too? I love my kids. I do. But being a father 24/7, it's not what I thought it would be. I felt like I was losing myself. I needed space to figure out who I was outside of being a husband and dad. I laughed, actually laughed out loud. You're 34 years old, Jake. You had 3 children. You don't get to decide you need space to find yourself when you're responsible for 3 human beings you created. I know it sounds bad. It doesn't sound bad. It is bad. You abandoned your family, and then you lied to me about it for 2 years. I didn't lie. You told me your wife was dead. How is that not lying? He got quiet, looked down at his hands. I was going to tell you, eventually, but every time I tried, I couldn't find the right words. And then enough time had passed that it seemed like it would be worse to tell you the truth. So you just never planned to tell me? What was your end game here? Were we supposed to get married? Have kids? Would you still be sending child support to your secret first family while we started our secret second family? It's not like that. Then, what is it like, Jake? People in the coffee shop turned to look at us. My brother half stood up from his table, ready to intervene. I waved him off. Jake looked genuinely distressed now. I fell in love with you. Real love. Not the obligatory married with kids love. Actual passion and excitement. You made me feel alive again. I didn't want to lose that. So you chose your feelings over your responsibilities. Over your kids. My kids have their mother. They're fine. That's when I lost it. I slammed my hand on the table and leaned in close. Your kids are not fine. They have a father who shows up once every few months and sends barely enough money to cover their expenses. The oldest is 9, Jake. 9. Old enough to know something is wrong. Old enough to feel rejected by you. How fucking dare you say they're fine? He was crying now. Actually crying. What do you want me to do? Go back to a life I don't want? Pretend to be happy in a marriage that makes me miserable? I want you to divorce Emma officially. I want you to set up proper custody with your kids. I want you to go to therapy and figure out why you think running away from your problems is acceptable. I want you to take accountability for the pain you've caused. And I want you to never contact me again. Please don't do this. I love you. You love what I represent. A clean slate. No responsibilities. No reminders of your failures. I was convenient. But you know what? I'm inconvenient now. Because I know the truth. And you can't live in your fantasy anymore. I'll divorce Emma. I'll work out custody. I'll do whatever you want. Just please don't leave me. I'm not leaving you. I already left. This is just me officially telling you it's over. He grabbed my hand across the table. I pulled away immediately. My brother started walking over. Jake, we're done here. I'll have someone pick up my remaining stuff from the apartment this week. Don't contact me. Don't show up at my parents' house. Don't text me. We're done. You don't mean that. I absolutely mean that. My brother reached our table. Everything okay here? Jake looked at him, then back at me. This isn't over. Yeah, it is. I stood up to leave. You're going to regret this. Jake called after me as I walked toward the door. I turned back. The only thing I regret is wasting 2 years on someone who doesn't deserve 5 minutes of my time. And then I left. Walked out of that coffee shop and didn't look back. My brother drove me home. I cried the whole way. Not because I missed Jake or wanted him back, but because I was so angry at him. So angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. So angry that people like him exist and hurt people like Emma and those kids. When I got home, my mom had made my favorite comfort food, her famous chicken pot pie. My dad gave me a long hug. Rachel came over with wine. We all sat around the kitchen table and I told them everything Jake had said. My dad's response? He's lucky I wasn't at that coffee shop. My mom's response? You're better off, sweetheart. Someone who can do that to his own children would have eventually done it to you. Rachel's response? I still think we should blast him on social media. We didn't blast him on social media yet. But I did text Emma to update her. She was grateful for the closure. She said she's moving forward with the divorce and has a lawyer helping her file for full custody with court-ordered child support. Jake is apparently going to have to pay significantly more than he has been. Good. Emma also told me something interesting. Jake's mom called her yesterday. Apparently she's furious with Jake and wants to see her grandchildren more. She apologized to Emma for enabling Jake's behavior and wants to be more involved in the kids' lives. Emma said they're planning a visit next month. So Jake's carefully constructed fantasy is falling apart in real time. His family is turning on him. Emma is moving forward. I'm done with him. And he's left sitting in his consequences. I'm not going to lie, it still hurts. I still catch myself wanting to text him about something funny that happened, or missing the way he'd make coffee in the morning, or remembering inside jokes we had. But then I remember those 3 kids and the anger comes flooding back. Someone asked me in a DM if I'd ever consider meeting Jake's kids. Honestly, I don't know. Part of me thinks it would be weird and inappropriate. But another part of me thinks about that little toy car I found under the couch and wonders if they're okay, if they know any of this is happening. If they're confused about why Daddy isn't around even less now than before. Jake's been radio silent with Emma since I confronted him, apparently. But that's not my responsibility. Those kids have a mother who loves them and is fighting for them. They'll be okay. And if I ever do meet them, it'll be years from now when all of this is ancient history and I can say, I briefly dated your dad during a weird time in his life, without it being traumatic for everyone. For now, I'm focusing on healing, on rebuilding my sense of trust, on figuring out what I want my life to look like without Jake in it. I'm remembering that I deserve someone who doesn't have secret families hidden away like embarrassing skeletons in a closet. I'm also thinking about Emma a lot. We've been texting almost daily now. She's funny and smart and strong. I'm so angry that Jake took her for granted. She told me yesterday that she hasn't dated anyone since Jake left. She was still holding out hope they'd reconcile. But now she's talking about maybe trying dating apps when the divorce is finalized. I told her she's going to have men lining up once they realize she's available. She laughed and said, maybe. But right now, I'm just focusing on my kids and myself. That seems like a healthy attitude. Maybe I should adopt the same philosophy. One last thing. Jake texted me last night from a new number. I'd blocked his old one. The message said, I made mistakes, but you're making a bigger mistake by walking away. You'll see that eventually. I hope it's not too late when you do. The audacity. The sheer fucking audacity of this man to think I'm the one making a mistake. I showed the text to Rachel and she said, save that. You'll need it as evidence of his delusion when you're telling the story to your future therapist. She's right. I'm definitely going to need therapy to process this whole situation, but I'm going to be okay. I know I will be. I'm young. Ish. I'm smart. I'm capable of love even though someone took advantage of that. Jake doesn't get to ruin relationships for me forever. He was a chapter in my life, a really shitty, dramatic, chaotic chapter. But just a chapter, not the whole story. And someday when I meet someone who is actually honest and kind and doesn't have secret wives and children hidden away, I'm going to appreciate them so much more because I'll know what the alternative looks like. So yeah, that's where I am. Single, angry, healing, and eating a lot of my mom's cooking. Could be worse. Thanks for reading this absolute dumpster fire of a situation. Honestly, just writing it all out has been therapeutic. And knowing that strangers on the internet are reading this and going, "What the fuck?" makes me feel less crazy for having the exact same reaction. If anyone has advice on how to trust again, or recommendations for good therapists, or suggestions for dramatic revenge plots that won't land me in jail, I'm all ears. But most importantly, if you're dating someone and anything seems even slightly off, trust your gut. Check their Facebook. Google them. Ask questions. Don't let someone gaslight you into ignoring red flags. I wish I'd trusted my instincts when Hannah mentioned the marriage being rough. I wish I'd asked more questions when he was vague about his past. I wish I'd looked at his phone that night instead of trying to convince myself everything was fine. Learn from my mistakes. Don't date men with dead wives. Especially when they're not actually dead. Over and out. Let's move on to the next story. I keep thinking I should wait until I'm calmer to share this, but honestly, I need to get it out before I completely lose my mind. So here goes nothing. I'm 28 years old, and until this past Tuesday, I thought I had my life reasonably figured out. Not perfect, obviously, but stable. I've been working as a graphic designer at a boutique creative agency in Seattle for the past 3 years. Before that, I freelanced for about 2 years after college, which was the usual nightmare of inconsistent paychecks and imposter syndrome, but I pushed through. Landing this agency job felt like finally making it, you know? Regular salary, benefits, actual vacation days. My parents were proud. I was proud. My best friend since college, Vanessa, has been my rock through all of it. We met freshman year when we were randomly assigned as roommates, and we just clicked immediately. She's one of those people who seems to effortlessly glide through life. Gorgeous, charming, always knows the right thing to say. I'm more the anxious overthinker type, so we balanced each other out. After graduation, we both ended up in Seattle, her for a marketing job, me chasing the design scene, and we've been inseparable ever since. Weekly brunches, constant texting. She has a key to my apartment. That level of close. About 8 months ago, things at work started getting weird. Nothing dramatic at first, just small things that felt off. I'd been working on this huge rebranding project for a tech client, probably the biggest account I'd ever handled solo. My creative director, Monica, had specifically chosen me for it, said she was impressed with my portfolio growth. I was terrified but excited. You know that feeling? Like finally getting the chance to prove yourself. The first strange thing was when I showed up to a client meeting and realized my presentation file had somehow gotten corrupted. I'd checked it that morning, everything was perfect, but when I opened it in the conference room, half the slides were just blank or showed error messages. I had to improvise from memory while the client looked increasingly unimpressed. Monica was clearly disappointed but told me we'd recover. I felt like such an idiot, spent that entire evening checking my computer for viruses or technical issues. Found nothing. Then a few weeks later, I missed a major deadline. Except, I didn't actually miss it. I'd submitted the files through our project management system 2 days early, like I always do because I'm paranoid about timing. But when the deadline came, Monica called me into her office asking where the deliverables were. I pulled up my computer to show her the submission confirmation, and there was nothing there. No record of me ever uploading anything. The files were still on my hard drive, but according to the system, I'd never submitted them. Monica was understanding that time too, said technical glitches happen, but I could tell she was starting to wonder about me. It kept happening. Small things, then bigger things. An email I definitely sent to a client, gone from my sent folder with no record I'd ever written it. A crucial meeting I'd had on my calendar suddenly disappearing, making me miss it entirely. Files I'd organized meticulously ending up in the wrong folders or renamed to gibberish. Each incident made me look flaky or incompetent, and I could feel Monica's faith in me eroding. My coworkers started giving me these sympathetic looks, like I was falling apart. I confided in Vanessa about all of it, obviously. She was sympathetic, suggested maybe I was burned out or stressed, that I should take a few days off. She'd come over with wine and let me vent, told me everyone has rough patches at work, that Monica would recognize my talent eventually. It helped having her support. I genuinely don't know what I would have done without her during those months. Things came to a head about 3 weeks ago. I'd been working on a pitch for a potential new client, a really big deal that could have meant a promotion if we landed them. Monica asked me to lead the presentation since it was in my style wheelhouse. I spent weeks preparing, barely slept the last few days before the pitch. The morning of the meeting, I woke up feeling sick, like genuinely nauseous and feverish. Figured it was just nerves. Pushed through anyway. Got to the office, set up my presentation, and waited for the clients to arrive. They never came. Turned out the meeting had been rescheduled to the previous day and everyone had been notified except apparently me. Monica was furious, not at me exactly, but at the situation. The clients felt disrespected, like we didn't have our act together. We lost the account before we even had it. Monica called me into her office and very gently suggested I might want to consider whether I was truly happy at the agency, if maybe I needed a change. It wasn't quite a firing, but it was close. I was devastated. I went home and completely broke down. Called Vanessa, sobbing, and she came right over. We sat on my couch while I ugly cried into her shoulder, and she held me and made soothing noises and told me it would all work out. She stayed over that night, made sure I ate something, put me to bed like I was a child. I remember thinking how lucky I was to have her, that at least I had one solid thing in my life, even if my career was imploding. The next morning, Saturday, Vanessa left early saying she had errands. I spent the day in a depressive haze, binge-watching reality TV and eating cereal for every meal. At some point in the afternoon, I realized I needed to start actively job hunting, that I probably didn't have much time left at the agency. I opened my laptop to update my resume and portfolio. That's when I noticed something weird. My computer was running slow, which wasn't unusual, but when I checked the activity monitor, there was this application running that I didn't recognize. It looked like some kind of remote access software. I'm not super technical, but I know enough to know that's not normal. I Googled the application name and my stomach dropped when I read that it's software that lets someone else control your computer from a different location. I'm not going to lie, my first thought was that I'd been hacked by some random person. Maybe I'd clicked a phishing link or something. I was about to call IT support when something made me check when the software had been installed. It took some digging through system logs, thank God for YouTube tutorials, but I eventually found it. 8 months ago, the exact week when the weird incidents at work had started. I felt cold all over. This wasn't random. Someone had deliberately installed this on my computer, had been systematically sabotaging me for months. But who and how? I tried to think of who'd had access to my laptop. I bring it to work every day, sure, but I don't leave it unattended often, and the office is pretty secure. My apartment? I live alone. Only a few people have keys. My landlord, my parents who live across the country and haven't visited in over a year. And Vanessa. I sat there staring at the screen, trying to make sense of it. Vanessa wouldn't. She's my best friend. She's been supporting me through all of this. Why would she be the one causing it? It didn't make any logical sense, but the timeline matched, and she did have unrestricted access to my apartment, had been here alone plenty of times. She could have installed it one of the dozens of nights she'd stayed over, or during the week last spring when I'd been visiting family and she'd watered my plants. I felt sick, but I had to know for sure. The remote access software had logs showing when it had been active. I opened them, hands shaking so badly I could barely use the trackpad. Pages and pages of access times. Almost all of them were during work hours, when I'd have been at my computer but potentially in meetings or away from my desk for bathroom breaks. Times when someone could take control for just a few minutes without me noticing. Enough time to delete an email, change a calendar entry, corrupt a file, cancel a meeting. But the logs showed more than just times. They showed the IP address of whoever was accessing my computer remotely. I copied it and ran it through an IP lookup service, not really knowing what I expected to find. It was Vanessa's apartment building. The IP address belonged to the internet provider and roughly matched the geographic area where she lived. I think I stopped breathing for a minute, just completely froze with my laptop sitting there on my thighs. Screen glowing, showing me proof that my best friend had spent 8 months deliberately destroying my career. The person I'd been crying to, seeking comfort from, the one who'd been telling me everything would be okay while she was the one making sure it wouldn't be, my first instinct was to call her immediately and scream at her, demand to know why. But something stopped me. If I confronted her directly, she'd just deny it, or make some excuse, or find a way to turn it around on me. I know her. She's silver-tongued, always has been. She'd convince me I was paranoid or misunderstanding the evidence. I needed more information first, needed to understand why she'd done this. I spent the rest of that Saturday and most of Sunday digging. I looked through my computer for anything else strange, checked my phone, my email accounts, everything. What I found made the betrayal so much worse. She'd been logging into my email regularly. I'd given her my password years ago during some emergency, never thought to change it. She'd been reading my messages, including work emails. She'd known about the projects I was working on, the deadlines, the meeting times. That's how she'd known exactly what to sabotage. But I also found something else, something I'd completely forgotten about. About a year ago, Vanessa had asked to borrow my external hard drive, said hers had died, and she needed to back up some important files from her computer, would give it back in a few days. I'd said, sure, whatever, didn't think twice about it. She'd returned it a week later. I found that hard drive in my desk drawer and plugged it in, not really sure what I was looking for. Most of it was my old files, backups of college projects and photos. But there was one folder I didn't recognize, buried in a subdirectory, named just a random string of numbers and letters. Inside were documents, a lot of documents. Dozens of them, all to companies I'd applied to over the past 2 years. But these weren't my applications. They were Vanessa's. She'd been applying to the same positions I'd applied for, sometimes within hours of me sending my applications, which she'd have known about from reading my emails. That was weird enough. But what made my hands start shaking again was that she'd been using a modified version of my portfolio. She'd taken my design work, changed just enough elements to make them look different, but kept the core concepts and execution and was passing them off as her own. All my best pieces, the ones that had gotten me noticed, that had landed me my job, she'd been stealing them and using them in her own applications. Claiming my work as hers? I felt like I was going to throw up. This wasn't just sabotage, it was theft. She'd been systematically stealing my professional identity while simultaneously destroying my career so I wouldn't be competition. But why? That's what I couldn't understand. Vanessa had a good job. She'd always seemed happy with her marketing position. We weren't even in the exact same field, design versus marketing. Why go to such insane lengths to hurt me? I knew I needed to be smart about this, so I documented everything. Screenshots, printed logs, copied files, the whole 9 yards. Then I did something that felt crazy even as I was doing it. I went to Vanessa's apartment. She wasn't home. I texted her something casual first to make sure, and I let myself in with the keys she'd given me. Told myself I was just looking for answers, that she'd been violating my privacy for months, so this was justified. Her place was the usual organized chaos I was used to. Fashion magazines and makeup everywhere, half-drunk coffee cups. I felt like a criminal as I started searching, opening drawers, and looking through her desk. I almost gave up, thinking I was being paranoid, when I found a folder in her bedroom closet shoved in the back behind shoeboxes. Inside were printed copies of some of my work documents, annotated with notes in her handwriting. Calendar pages showing my schedule that she'd apparently been tracking. But underneath all of that was something else. Old newspaper clippings and printed articles, all paper-clipped together. They were about my family. Specifically about my dad. My father owns a successful architecture firm, founded it about 30 years ago, and built it from nothing into something pretty prestigious. He's semi-retired now, mostly consulting, but the firm still bears his name, and he's still very involved. These articles were about the firm's history, major projects they'd completed, awards they'd won. Why would Vanessa have these? Under the articles were older documents, photocopies of what looked like business records from the early days of my dad's firm, partnership agreements, incorporation documents, that kind of thing. I was confused about why these were here, so I started reading more carefully. My dad had started the firm with 2 partners, I knew that part. They'd all met in graduate school and decided to go into business together after graduation, but the partners had left within the first 5 years. Some kind of disagreement, and my dad had bought them out and continued solo. He didn't talk about them much. I'd asked once when I was younger, and he'd said it was ancient history, that they'd wanted to go in different creative directions, and it was best to part ways amicably. According to these documents, though, it hadn't been amicable at all. There were letters from lawyers, arguments about money and intellectual property. One of the original partners was claiming my dad had stolen his designs, had cut him out of projects, and taken sole credit for work they'd done together. The partner's name was printed at the bottom of several letters. Marcus Chen. I stood there in Vanessa's closet holding these papers, and something clicked in my brain. Vanessa's last name is Chen. Her father's name is Marcus. She'd told me he'd been an architect, that he died when she was young. I'd never made the connection because Chen is an incredibly common name, and honestly, I'd never had a reason to. But this had to be more than coincidence. I pulled out my phone and started searching for Marcus Chen Architect Seattle. Found his obituary from 15 years ago. Survived by his wife Patricia and daughter Vanessa, age 13. It was her father. Vanessa's dad had been my father's business partner. And, according to these documents, my dad had screwed him over badly. Stolen his work, pushed him out of the firm, taken all the credit and success that Marcus Chen felt should have been partly his. I sat down right there on Vanessa's closet floor, papers scattered around me, trying to process this. We'd met freshman year of college, completely randomly. Or at least I thought it was random. But we'd both gone to the University of Washington, both from Seattle. She would have known who I was. My father's firm is well known in the Seattle architecture community, and I have his same distinctive last name. She'd have known exactly who my father was when we were assigned as roommates. Our entire friendship had been a lie from the beginning. She'd befriended me on purpose, gotten close to me over years, earned my trust completely, all so she could eventually destroy me the way she felt my father had destroyed hers. The betrayal of the work sabotage had felt enormous, but this was so much bigger. 8 years of friendship, hundreds of memories, all of it fake. Every time she'd comforted me, every secret shared, every inside joke, she'd been playing a role the whole time, the devoted best friend. While planning my destruction, I took pictures of everything in that folder with my phone, put it all back exactly as I'd found it, and left her apartment. Went home and just sat in the dark for hours, feeling completely numb. By Monday morning, I'd made a decision. I gathered all my evidence, everything I'd documented, and I called a lawyer, explained the situation, showed them what I had. They confirmed that what Vanessa had done was illegal, the computer tampering, the theft of my work, all of it. We could press charges if I wanted to, but I also called my dad. That was harder. I had to ask him about Marcus Chen, about what had really happened 30 years ago. He was quiet for a long time after I asked, and then he sighed in this heavy way I'd never heard from him before. He admitted that the split hadn't been clean, that there'd been a major fight about who deserved credit for certain projects. But his version was different from what the documents suggested. He said Marcus had been incredibly talented, but unreliable, would disappear for weeks with mental health struggles. This was the 80s. Mental health wasn't discussed openly, leaving my dad to cover for him with clients and complete projects on increasingly impossible deadlines. Eventually, my dad had to make a choice between the firm surviving or continuing to carry Marcus. He bought Marcus out, offered what he felt was fair compensation, but Marcus had felt betrayed and made increasingly wild accusations about stolen work. They'd settled legally, Marcus had signed away his stake in the firm, but he'd remained bitter until his death. My dad sounded genuinely sad talking about it, said he'd always felt guilty about how things ended even though he believed he'd done what was necessary. He'd heard Marcus had died but hadn't known about a daughter. When I told him what Vanessa had done to me, he went quiet again. Then he said something that's been echoing in my head ever since. She's been carrying his anger all these years. That's not her fault, but it's not yours either. I didn't know what to do with that. Still don't, honestly. I confronted Vanessa on Tuesday, asked her to meet me at a coffee shop. Neutral territory. She showed up all smiles, asked how I was feeling after the work disaster, if I'd started job hunting. I looked at her across the table, this person I'd thought I knew completely, and felt nothing but hollow sadness. I told her I knew everything, about the software on my computer, the sabotage, the stolen portfolio pieces, her father. I watched her face change as I listed each thing, saw her go from confused to defensive to finally almost relieved, like she was tired of pretending. She didn't deny it. Just sat there for a minute stirring her coffee and then started talking. Said she'd recognized my last name the day we met, had looked up my father and confirmed he was the same person who'd ruined her dad. She told me her father had struggled his whole life after leaving the firm, felt like a failure, battled depression, that he died by suicide when she was 13, and with his last words to her mother, he'd blamed my father for stealing his dreams. She'd grown up hearing about how my family had destroyed hers, how my father was a thief who'd built his success on her father's talent. When she found out we'd be roommates, she'd seen it as fate, a chance to get close to me and eventually make my father feel the same pain her family had felt. But I wasn't supposed to be so nice, she said. I wasn't supposed to become actually important to her. She'd planned to destroy me quickly, first year of college, but she genuinely liked me despite herself. So she'd waited, stayed close, convinced herself she'd eventually stop caring and be able to go through with it. 8 years of internal conflict, she said, between the revenge she felt she owed her father and the genuine friendship we'd developed. The work sabotage had started when she'd learned my dad was planning to retire and hand the firm down to me eventually. News to me, but apparently he'd mentioned it to some industry people. She'd realized that I was going to inherit everything her father should have had, and something had snapped. She couldn't let that happen without making me suffer first, making me know what failure felt like the way her dad had. I listened to all of this and just felt tired. I told her I was sorry about her father. Genuinely sorry, but that I'd been a child when all of that happened. I hadn't stolen anything from anyone. I'd just been born into a family, same as her, and I didn't deserve to be punished for something I had no part in. She started crying then, said she knew that she'd known it all along but couldn't let go of the anger. That she'd been trapped by her father's bitterness, had absorbed it so completely that it had become her own. She said she was sorry, kept saying it over and over, but it sounded empty even to my ears. I told her I'd already spoken to a lawyer, that what she'd done was prosecutable, that I could press charges for computer tampering, fraud, identity theft, probably other things too. I watched her face go pale, and for a second I felt a spike of satisfaction that immediately made me feel gross. But then I told her I wasn't going to, not because I forgave her or because I thought what she did was okay, but because I was exhausted, and I just wanted it over. I told her to stay away from me, to delete any file she had of my work, to never contact me again. I told her I was going to notify my employer about the sabotage and clear my name, but I wouldn't mention her specifically if she didn't fight me on it. She agreed to everything, still crying. I got up and left without saying goodbye, without hugging her, without any of the warmth that had always been between us. Just walked away from 8 years like it was nothing because it turned out it had been nothing all along. I met with Monica yesterday, showed her all the evidence of the tampering, the remote access logs, everything. She was horrified, immediately apologized, said my job was secure and she'd make sure everyone knew I hadn't been at fault. She asked if I knew who'd done it, and I said I suspected someone but didn't have absolute proof. She didn't push it, and I was grateful. So now I'm here, in my apartment, having purged every photo of Vanessa from my phone, blocked her on everything, sitting with this massive sense of loss that I know is completely irrational because I didn't actually lose anything real. You can't lose something that was never genuine in the first place. But it feels like loss anyway. I keep thinking about all the times I thought we were having real moments. When she helped me through my grandmother's death junior year, holding me while I sobbed. When I'd helped her move apartments, painting walls at 3 a.m. while we sang badly to pop music. The time we'd taken that spontaneous road trip to Portland, gotten lost, and laughed until we couldn't breathe. Were any of those moments real for her? Or was she just playing a role the whole time, the devoted best friend, while planning my destruction? My dad has offered to go to therapy with me to talk through the family history stuff, help me understand what really happened between him and Marcus Chen. I think I'll take him up on it, not because I doubt his version necessarily, but because I need to understand the full picture, even the ugly parts. This whole thing has made me realize how much pain can echo across generations when people don't deal with their wounds honestly. I don't know if Vanessa will actually stay away. Part of me worries she'll try to retaliate somehow for me uncovering her plans, but my lawyer says I have enough documented to destroy her professionally if she tries anything else. I hate that it's come to mutual assured destruction as our ending, but I guess that's appropriate given how we apparently started. The worst part is that I miss her. I know I shouldn't. I know the person I'm missing never actually existed, but I can't help it. I miss having someone to text about stupid things, someone who knew all my stories and inside references, someone who felt like family. Even if it was all performance, I'd gotten used to having that presence in my life. Now there's just this gaping absence, and I don't know how to fill it. People keep telling me I dodged a bullet, that I'm lucky I found out before she did even more damage. And they're right. If she'd gone through with whatever endgame she'd been planning, it could have been so much worse. But it doesn't feel lucky. It just feels lonely and confusing and like I can't trust my own judgment anymore. If I couldn't see through someone I was that close to for 8 years, what else am I blind to? I guess I'm sharing all of this partly to get it out, partly to see if anyone else has experienced something similar. How do you recover from discovering your closest friendship was built on a foundation of revenge? How do you learn to trust people again when you were so catastrophically wrong about someone? And the really messed up part? Sometimes I understand her. Not what she did, obviously. That was unforgivable. But the core of it, being shaped by a parent's pain, carrying wounds you didn't even realize weren't yours, letting anger become such a part of your identity that you don't know how to exist without it. I feel sorry for her, for the life she wasted obsessing over revenge for something that happened before she was even born. What a horrible way to live. My therapist? Yeah, I'm back in therapy as of this week, says I need to focus on rebuilding my sense of self outside of that friendship, remembering who I was before I knew Vanessa and who I want to be going forward. That I can't let her betrayal poison my ability to connect with people authentically. She's probably right, but it's hard to see the path forward right now. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. Career salvaged but scarred, best friendship revealed as elaborate revenge plot, family history more complicated than I knew, trust issues that are probably going to take years to unpack. Just typing it all out makes it sound like a bad thriller movie, but this is actually my life right now. If anyone has advice or similar experiences, or just wants to tell me I'm not crazy, I'd appreciate it. Mostly I'm just trying to process that the past 8 years of my life weren't what I thought they were. And I don't even know what to do with that information except keep moving forward and hope it eventually makes some kind of sense. Thanks for watching. If you want more of these stories, your support means everything. A simple like and subscribe really helps the channel grow and reach more people who love these stories too.